Hello guys, Carol here. Today we're going to be building this addition calculator here in our browser, which is just Google Chrome. You can see here all those buttons are functional. Let's take a look here. You can see here what the del button does. It just basically deletes the last digit in this calculator. AC just cleared our screen, and we have here the different buttons that we want to use. Okay, so well, let's start coding. So the first thing that we want to do here, um, let's just start here with the body, right? Which basically is where we're going to put things that the user will use, that will interact with. And what we have here is, this part where we have the results and we have different buttons around here. So we're going to start this part here with our div class calculator grid. Okay, so this is a single div. So we're going to start here with the div, which is a single div and has our class calculator. The name of the class is calculator grid. And basically what it's going to have is like lay everything out nice and neat. So we have, so what we want to do is, right, so we want to have the single div here. It's just gonna wrap everything. Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a class name. In this case again, it's just calculator grid. And just make sure that everything is in lowercase. So and inside here, so everything works good. Okay. So the next thing that we have here is again is a simple div, but inside this div we have other divs, right? So we have the big class, which is the output, and then we have another single div, which is the previous operand and the current operand following. And those are just those numbers that we see on the screen. You see we had basically two lines for all those numbers. Okay, let's continue. So here, let's see. So I just want to say like the reason that, that we are calling it this is just because, whatever is up here, whatever we type previously, that's what it's called previous, so whatever we type previously, it was just going to show up, right, in our screen. And then we have the second div, which is, where we're going to have the current operand. So whatever we are currently typing down here, right down here. Um, and then after this, we have the output div. We have all our different buttons. And then we have just, we close that div and then we have the different buttons here where we're going to start creating, that structure of our calculator for that, right? And let me just remove the comment on this one. And the first button that we have here is number one, number two, number three, and so on. And they all have different, I would say, functionalities, right? For example, the numeric buttons, which is like 0 to 9. So this button, what they do, it just allow the user, right, to input numbers and the decimal point, for example, for decimal numbers, right? Um, so, so this button right here represents the number one. This part here, button data number, just represents right here represents just like the decimal, right? The decimal point. So we have some operations buttons here, and you can see data operation. Um, in this case, actually just the addition button. If you wanna, do like multiplications, another one, you can just continue data operation. Yeah. So what you do here is just used to represent, right? This button is used to represent the addition operation, and it allows the user to choose the addition operation to perform on the numbers that they input here, right? So, and then we have some special functions button has looked like the AC, DL or del, and then the E. The AC button, what it's just used to clear all the previous input and reset the calculator. It defines, and it is defined by all these that we have here. Sorry, this one right here. And then the del button, that is basically deleting the last digit, and the equal button, well, just used to calculate the results when the user has entered the numbers and selected the operation, and then it can do his thing. Okay, so the data attributes you see here, data in this button just help the JavaScript code to identify and distinguish the button, right, when handling user interactions. By using these custom attributes, the JavaScript code can selectively perform different actions based on the button click, okay? Such as like appending numbers to the current operand, selecting an operation, right, performing calculations, clear the input, or deleting the last digit. So now that we have here, this is basically the HTML that we need for our application. And if we go into our application over here, we see all the different buttons that we add in this section here. Okay. Okay, so now that we did that, we're just gonna go ahead and play a little bit with our CSS style, right? So basically, we're gonna see those buttons, in the special format that we want to give it. So let's take a look. So here, uh, okay, so this part here, right, the body type. Let's see here. remove those comments. So the body type, this style basically applies to the entire body of the HTML document. And we have padding 0 and margin 0. So it will remove any default spacing around the body. And then we have the background that we want for our calculator. See here, today I had to do all of this. Okay, just give me a minute. So here, we have padding and margin, how I mentioned, and then we have the background, right, for this calculator here. And you can see it's a linear gradient, basically uses two color, right, black and white. So, okay. And then we have the just 4 and 5. Okay, so that's for our calculator grid. And then we have here the calculator grid button. Let me remove the comment. And basically, what the calculator, actually, let me just go ahead and do this. Let's save and refresh. You can see, right? This is what happens. And this is how those styles are helping us just to, fit the appearance of our calculator. So let me go here. Okay, so here the calculator on grid bottom, it's basically, this style targets all the buttons inside the calculator grid container. We have like the cursor pointer. We change the mouse cursor to a pointer where, hovering over the buttons, the cursor to a pointer where hovering over the buttons. And then we have font size, which is basically set the font size of the button text to root and then, or just say, REM or RAM. And then we have the border one, be it solid white, how I say, just really customizing our grid and how do we want it. Okay. And then if we go down here to the calculator grid hover again, you see we kept using this calculator grid, which is just right the container that has all those items in here. So everything is just encapsulated there. So this style, basically what it does, it just applies to the buttons when they are hover over by the mouse. So the background change, we have here the background, it just how this is basically how it's going to help us like with the different colors, right? So let's see here, just set the background and then add like a semi-transparent black color or the color that we decide to use in here. Okay, and then we have the background, which changes the background color to a more, I don't know, like opaque white, giving a visual feedback to the user when hovering. Okay, so and then let's continue. We have the output, which is right here. Remember that we had two outputs right here. And basically what it does, it just the grid column, it just expands the entire width of the grid container from the first column to the last column. And then we apply a background color, which sets the background color of the output area to a semi-transparent black color. And then we have the display flat. This one just sets the display mode of the output area to flats, allowing areas of the, areas to be flats items, basically. And then we have the alignments, that aligns the items, this case the text, and the flats end, which are the buttons of the container. And then we have some, justify, again, just things so our calculator looks better. And then here we have the previous operand, again, just playing with those colors, and the same for the current operand. Okay, and we can decide, the font size and everything else. So if I refresh this, it just changed to the appearance that we had before. Okay, so now that we have that, like basically the look, right? The look of our calculator. The next thing that we're going to do is play with the script. How I mentioned in one of my videos before, basically this is where all the magic happens, right? Our JavaScript code. And it's just where the logic of this. So we're gonna just to add the functionality, right, of our calculator. So let's go back. Take a look here, the script, and remember they go inside the script. All your JavaScript code goes inside the script. Okay, so here we're gonna see the script, and the script you can see here, it's just the class is called calculator, and the first thing that we see here is the constructor, and this is just a method, right? It's a special method that gets called automatically when a new instance of the calculator class is created, right? It takes two parameters. It takes the previous operand text element and the current one, which are reference to HTML elements, the elements that will be used to display the calculator's previous and current operands. So inside the constructor, the past previous operand text element and current operand and text element are stored as properties of the class using this, as you can see here, this, right? And then we have the declare button that basically, is used to reset the calculator to its initial state, right? Which is different from the delete button, which is a slice. You see, use the slice that cuts or remove the last digit. Okay, which is using the delete method, right? And it just to remove again the last character, the current operand, right? It converts the current operand to string. using to string, okay, and then a slice method that removes the last character from the string. And this method is called when the user clicks on the DL or del button to delete the last digit entered. So, okay, so right now it doesn't work, but once we finish this, we're gonna just refresh the page and see what it does to avoid adding multiple decimal points. So let me say this again. If the number being appended is a decimal point and the current operand already includes a decimal point, right, it returns early to avoid adding any multiple decimals. So then if that happens, if that condition happens, then we have, hold on please, need some water here. So then it will do something else, right? So otherwise it appends the number or the decimal point to the current operand using a string concatenation. This is what it's doing here. So here, string concatenation, get display number. So with the get display number, right, what we have here is really a helper method that is used to format the display of number of the calculator. It takes a number, right? You can see here. This is what we need here. So it takes a number, has a parameter, and returns a formatted version of the number with appropriate formatting for thousands, separators, and decimal points. First, it converts the number to string using toString number right here, number to string. Okay. It then separates the integer part of the decimal point part of the number using the split. Okay. So here we are doing the split. Okay. The integer part then is stored in the integer digits variable, and then decimal part is stored in a decimal digits variable. So if the integer digits is not a valid number, it means the number is not valid. So it sets the integer display to an empty string. Otherwise, it formats the integer digits with commas and thousands of separators using two local, is string. So we have here, okay, right here. So we have it here. And so if there is a decimal, right, digits, it just returns the formatted number has an integer display decimal digits. Okay, so we have here integer display decimal digits. Okay, if not, it just returns just the integer display. So this method is just using the update display just to format and display the numbers with an appropriate separators. And then here we have the update display. And this one basically what it does is, update the display of the calculator with the current and previous operand. It sets the inner text property to the current operand text element, the main display to the result of calling get display number with the current operand. You can see here somewhere. Here. Okay. Okay, so if there is an operation, right, selected, it just sets the inner text property of the previous operand text element. So in the top of the display. So right now it doesn't work the calculator, but I'm just gonna refresh this and everything's gonna be working good. Okay. So if there's no operation, it just simply sets, the previous operand text element to an empty string. All right. Just to say like this method, it's called whenever there is a change in the operand or the selected operation, ensuring the display is always updated, when we need it. Okay, and that happens here. Okay, so in this part of the code, what we're really doing just like getting elements, from the page, right? It just represents the buttons of the calculator and the areas where the numbers or calculations will be displayed. And then we have like code that creates a special calculator, using a JavaScript class that is called calculator, and it's like a small program, right, that can do basic math operations. In this case, addition. It just takes the selected elements for displaying the previous and current operands as input. It also does here, this code here, just sets up a way to listen for when the user clicks. So right here, when the user clicks, we here have an event listener on the number of buttons, and the user clicks on the number of buttons, and when a number button is clicked, it will call the append number function of the calculator with the number that was clicked as input. Then the function adds the click number to the current number shown in the calculator, and then we have update display after the user just clicks everything. It's just gonna it will display just update it. Basically, that's what it does. So let's take a look here. Take a look here. We have here the query selector, other fun stuff to look. So basically, the code just starts by selecting elements from the web page using a special syntax with square brackets and the attribute data number or data operation. In this case, for example, document that query selector all. Then we have data number selects all elements, right, that have the custom attribute data number, which will be the numbers buttons, on the calculator. And we remember the data number are all those ones that we see here. Okay, so what we have later here is so we also have similarly, we have the document that query selector, data previous operand, and what it does just selects the element with the attribute data previous operand, which will be used to display the previous operand on the calculator. And then we are setting some variables, right? Number buttons, operation buttons, etc. Okay. So those variables will be used later just to perform actions on the elements or to listen for user interactions, right? Then we have the creating calculator object. Okay, and basically what it does is just creates a new instance of a calculator object, right? A calculator object. So the object in this case is called calculator, which is like special to that helps with the calculators, calculations and display. So the calculator class takes two parameters, so the previous operand text element and the current operand text element. So these parameters are the elements where the calculator will display the previous and current operands respectively. Okay, so the next step is just to add event listeners. You can see here, right? So we are just adding an event listener to each of our buttons, right? Number buttons. And basically, they are like the event listeners are like little watchers that wait for something to happen. In this case, they are waiting for the click to happen, right? So once the user clicks one of the numbers buttons, then the event listener triggers a function, and these functions does two things. It calls the append number, okay, method of the calculator object, passing the number, so the text at the bottom, as an input. Then it calls the update display method of the calculator object to just refresh the display with new numbers. Okay, now we are here in this section. Okay, again, we're just doing event listeners at this moment of our time, right? So the next event listener that we have here, which is this one, which is for the equal button, right? Let's take a look. So basically, right, the code sets up an event listener for the equal bar, which is used to calculate the result of the standard, oh no, the enter expression. So when the user clicks the equals button, then the event listener triggers a function, right? Then inside the event listener function for the equal button, right there. Let's see here. So inside that, the code calls the method of the calculator object, compute, and then update the display. And then the compute method calculates the result of the expression that the user enter. In this case, for example, 3 plus 2, equal, it would just activate that um, method and it will just give you the number 5, right? And then just update the display. All right, so let's just continue. Then we have here also an event listener for the equal button and the same for here for all clear AC button, right? And then for the delete button, it just goes back, right, and calls the method that they need to use. And then they just update the display. All right, guys. So in summary, how you can see, it's pretty easy. It's a little bit just long, but let's refresh this and see what we got. Let's see, we had the numbers working, equal signs working, delete last number, type random numbers here and then just hit declare all. Okay, people, so this is the JavaScript calculator. Just remember that you can find these in my GitHub repository. Thank you.